The next example we're going to take a look at is number 14. This rational equation has quite a bit going on in the denominators, and so the least common denominator is going to be a little bit more involved to figure out because we will have to factor this quadratic expression on the bottom on the right hand side in order to help us figure out what the least common denominator is. So I will go through the steps for that. Now, the 3m plus 2 is its own factor. So 3m plus 2 is one factor, m minus 6 is its own factor. And now this 3m squared minus 16m minus 12, we have to figure out, is that just one factor or can it be factored into smaller expressions in the hopes of which this 3m plus 2 and this m minus 6 would be a part of it. So 3m squared minus 16m minus 12. We are going to use our x method to help us figure out if there's anything that this can be split into so that we can do factor by grouping. So 3 times negative 12 is going to be negative 36. So we're going to ask ourselves, what do we multiply to get to negative 36, but then add to get to negative 16? And in this case, it's going to be negative 18 and a positive 2. So negative 18 times 2 gives me negative 36, but then negative 18 plus 2 would give me negative 16. So this tells me this is how I'm going to end up breaking it down so that I can factor by grouping. So this is going to be equal to 3m squared minus 18m plus 2m minus 12. So now factoring by grouping, we're going to group these two terms together and group the last two terms together and factor each of those. So factoring this first one, we would have 3m, and then what we're going to be left with is m minus 6, plus we'd factor out of the 2m minus 12 a 2, and we'd be left with m minus 6, which is great because that's what we want to happen when we factor by grouping. We want to find some expression that can be factored out of both. So this is going to be the same as m minus 6, and then 3m plus 2 after we factor out that m minus 6. So this is great because that is the two factors that I had initially from the expressions on the left-hand side of the equation. So the least common denominator, is actually this right here. So our least common denominator that we're going to end up multiplying everything by is m minus 6 times 3m plus 2, which is the same as this 3m squared minus 16m minus 12. So what's going to happen is this whole denominator on the right-hand side is going to cancel out completely because that is our least common denominator. So rewriting this equation, we have 3 over 3m plus 2 minus 2 over m minus 6 equals 1 over 3m squared minus 16m minus 12. So I'm going to be multiplying everything by this least common denominator. So m minus 6 times 3m plus 2, m minus 6, and then 3m plus 2. So what's going to happen over here, the 3m plus 2 and the 3m plus 2 are going to cancel out, and we're left with 3 and then parentheses m minus 6 minus, and then over here we're going to have 2 times 3m plus 2, since the m minus 6 and m minus 6 are going to cancel out on that one. And then over on the right-hand side, this entire least common denominator that we chose is going to cancel out with the denominator. And so we're left with just 1. So now we're going to use the distributive property twice, and be careful here because this minus 2 is actually saying that that's a negative. So we're going to have 3m minus 18 plus, this would be negative 6m, and then plus negative 4, or just minus 4 if you want to write it that way, it's totally fine. And then we need to combine like terms, so 3m plus this negative 6m would be negative 3m. And then negative 18 plus negative 4, that would make negative 22, so you could either write plus negative or just minus 22 equals 1. And then now we're going to solve this by adding 22 to both sides. We'd have negative 3m equals 23. Divide both sides by negative 3. We get m equals negative 23 over 3. And again, just want to make sure that this is going to be okay. And now what's nice is since we factored this, this is going to tell us what the restricted values are, and then same with over here, we can tell what our restricted values are over here as well. And neither one of these, if you plug in this negative 23/3, this is going to end up working out for all of these and not make it so that the denominator is 0. So this is not a restricted value and would be a good solution.